Alright, so here we are, day whatever of the COVID-19 lockdown stuff. Not affecting me too bad. Always got plenty to do around here, but it's definitely getting a little annoying. My hair's getting a little crazy, but got something to work on today, which actually is going to be affected by the COVID-19 crap. I'm actually supposed to be getting married in 3 months, end of August. So I've been tasked by my fiance of building some centerpieces for the tables to hold flowers and put candles in. So she was browsing, the internet, picked out something she liked, and wanted me to whip some up. So it's going to be pretty simple. We just want something cheap and simple. It's going to be some little stands. I think they're about 32 inches tall or so. Just have some 3/8 square stock. So that's what we're going to be working on today. I'm hoping we can still have the wedding, because if not, she's going to flip out and have a meltdown. It's probably going to make me have a meltdown. So, no, hopefully it works out and we start loosening them up on some stuff. So, but yeah, this is, I mocked one up for her so she could look at it and get an idea. Some 3/8 square stock, little frame around the bottom, some 14 gauge. Sheet metal on top, so some flowers can rest on there, and then there'll be like some, I think she's putting candles kind of in the middle, so nothing too crazy, but just kind of walk you through how I'm going to do it, and start cutting up some steel. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up all the long pieces, all the long legs, and I'm going to just tack the ends together, that way I can cut 6 at a time in my little saw. I got them flushed at the end down there, and then I just got them clamped flat and clamped tight together here. I'll just tack weld the ends together, that way I can cut 6 at a time. That'll help save some time with everything, so we can get those tacked together and then go from there. I also, before I clamped all these together, I deburred all the edges, that way they sit nice and tight together and stuff, so I don't want them vibrating too much when it's clamped in the saw and cut. Alright, so I got the material over here in my little saw. One thing I'm going to do, even though I put all the factory ends at the other end, that's going to be the drops, I'm still going to do a face cut, even though I flushed these together. I still like to do that no matter what I'm doing, so I'm just going to slide them out far enough so I can cut about 3/16 or so off. Push down on them so they're tight together so they're not vibrating a bunch when it's cutting. Clamp it tight. Alright, got our face cut in. One thing you want to double check though, if you're going to cut something like this, multiple pieces at once, make sure your saw doesn't walk on you. This little thing's not the best saw, but it actually does a half decent job staying straight. So, but if your saw, if it wants to walk when you've got multiple pieces stacked up, you might only be able to do 1 or 2 at a time, because that'll change your lengths, and then you have all different pieces. So just keep that in mind. Alright, so I got all the pieces cut up that I needed, including short ones for around the bottom. One thing I figured I might mention is when it comes to planning on a project, or be it at work or for yourself or for customer, is think about your cut list and kind of plan out your cuts and how much material you're going to need. When my fiance was first telling me about these and kind of like the size she was looking at, I did a little bit of math to figure out, if we made them about an inch, inch and a half shorter or so, I'd be able to get 3 of the long legs out of an 8-foot stick, have just a tiny drop left. And then, I added up all the small ones too and figured out how much material I would need versus if we made them like an inch, inch and a half taller. And I was going to save us a fair amount of money, and she was all right with the height. I mocked one up for her, and she liked it, so it's only just a little bit shorter. So, the only drops I ended up with, these small pieces, and one little bit longer piece. So, if you guys have ever planned or paid for a wedding, you realize that every little penny starts to add up and count. So, just that little tweak, saves a fair amount of money. So, just something to consider, whether it's a personal project or for a customer or whatever. Obviously, if it's something that has specific dimensions, you're not going to be able to tweak it and stuff like that. But what you can do in that case is, say you got to cut a bunch of pieces out of 2 or 3 20-foot lengths of steel. Take a few minutes and do a little math and figure out, what combination of pieces you can put together to get the most out of that stick of material and, only have a small drop. So sometimes it works out pretty good. Sometimes there's no getting around having a big drop or a small drop, or big drop. But sometimes it just is what it is. But just try to be mindful of that. Think about it. If you're able to tweak something a tiny bit, it saves you $20, $40, $60. Yeah, do it. So I got all the pieces cut into bird. Might make up a little jig since I got like 9 of these to do, just to speed things up. I think I'll speed it up in the long run. So take a few extra minutes in the beginning, make something simple, and then start tacking and welding them up. So something you guys want to do if plan on TIG welding over hot rolled steel is definitely remove the mill scale. If you don't and try to TIG weld over it, guarantee it's going to give you undercut and probably some porosity as well. It's not as critical if you MIG weld it, but it is still good practice to remove it. You can, tack something, and you can actually just break the tack right off if it's not hot enough. It won't burn through that mill scale. Maybe I'll do a separate video on that. But I just clamp my grinder here with the wire wheel and the vise, and then just rubbed it across there. Something like this, the wire wheel, take it off. If you got like 1/4 inch or 3/8 plate or something, that mill scale is pretty thick on that stuff, and it won't even touch it. It might just shine it up a little bit, but it's not going to remove it. You'd have to take like a hard wheel to it. And then here I was thinking of making up a jig, but I had that one that I mocked up, so I figured I'd just use that, flipped it over, and then just kind of line all the pieces up with the perimeter of this one. Make sure they're all square and flush to the outside edge. Clamp them down, and then made it nice and simple. Didn't have to spend any extra time making a little jig or nothing like that. So. And you'll see when I tack these corners, if I'm working on anything that's kind of square, I'll typically tack opposite corners. So anytime you tack or weld, it wants to shrink and pull towards that weld. So if you do one corner and then do the opposite corner, it kind of fights each other and it kind of pulls it back straight. I mean, it's clamped here and this little stuff isn't going to move a whole lot, but it's something I try to always do. And I just went back and threw a couple extra tacks on there with a little filler rod. Make sure it doesn't move on me. From there I set up a couple angle blocks I have, clamped one to the table. I used the table has a nice machine straight edge on it, so I use that as kind of my zero, and just squared the angle block off of that, and then lined up
you know, a long piece along the edge of the table, and set my length there with the other angle block, and put clamps where I needed clamps. Not all of them needed a lot of clamps. A couple of them needed a couple extra clamps to hold them nice and square and straight, but and from there I just welded them out, moved around a little bit, did a little bit on the bottom, a little bit on the top, and then back to the bottom, because the bottom gets a fair amount of weld, so I don't want to fully weld one corner out and possibly cause distortion or anything like that, so I moved around a little bit. These things, they're not super rigid. If there's any kind of, you know, twist or anything in them, I can muscle them out a little bit, but they all came out pretty darn good. So next step after welding them out was to metal finish them, so I wanted them nice and smooth and clean on the outside. So I took a flapper wheel on the 4.5 inch grinder, started blending them down. You just gotta be careful with the 4.5 if you're metal finishing, especially something small and delicate like this. You can cause yourself some issues in a hurry. They you can do some damage pretty quick. So kind of changing direction here. You don't want to just stay in one spot, possibly wear a groove, and then you gotta chase it and blend it out. So just be gentle with it, not too much weight on it. Let it do the work. And sometimes I won't take it all the way down to flapper wheel. Sometimes I'll get it close and then use like a worn out or used 80 grit on my 90, and I'll come down and finish it off with that. So sometimes that's easier, especially something small like this. And you gotta be careful with the radius on the corner of this 3/8 square stock too. You don't want to look kind of out of place if you grind on the corner too much and then mess up the radius. So I took a red Scotch-Brite. There's like a brown, a red, a blue. Blue's fine. The red's good in between. It takes out most scratches from your abrasive, and then the brown's a little bit coarser if you got deeper scratches. I wouldn't recommend using anything coarser than a 60. I like an 80 grit if I plan on metal finishing. It makes it a lot easier for the rest of the scratches to blend out. So finish blending it out with the Scotch-Brite there. Careful on the corners and the radius.
Alright, got a finished product here. After I hit the all the welds with the flapper wheel and Scotch-Brite, I come back and hit them with the DA. Get them all nice and smooth. Get it ready for paint. So she wants them like a gold metallic, so let's grab some rattle cans and spray them down. But yep, not too bad. Quick, simple deal, less than 20 bucks a piece. Centerpiece for a wedding, for a table. Now I just got to finish these up and then back to that little guy over there. So I'm gonna crank these out and get to it.